So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present some of the research that has been conducted at the German Center of Gerontology. Loneliness is a highly relevant topic in the public debate in Germany already. The press publishes increasingly more articles with respect to loneliness. Political actors have recognized the impact of loneliness on public health and have introduced a number of actions against it at the regional, the country, and the federal levels. As a consequence of these increased public awareness and the improved funding opportunities, a number of new initiatives intent on fighting loneliness have been launched in recent years. For us at the German Center of Gerontology, social relationships and loneliness in late adulthood have always been one of the core interests of our research endeavors. And in recent years, we use it more and more to inform political actors as well as stakeholders. In the pursuit of researching loneliness in late adulthood, we developed a rather complex model that describes the antecedents and the consequences of the dynamic development of loneliness across the lifespan. So we assume, for example, if the existing social relationships are deficient in quantity or in quality, loneliness arises. However, whether or not a given individual perceives their relationships as deficient depends on their social standards. Some people need a large circle of friends to feel integrated. Others are content with a few close relationships. The extent to which an individual is able to shape their social relationship depends on their resources. Older adults with a negative image of their own aging, for example, have more difficulties getting involved socially than those with a positive image of their own aging. In addition, the general living condition also play a role. Our research has shown, for example, that people living in disadvantaged rural areas have more difficulties maintaining their support network as they get older as adults living in areas that are more well off. When loneliness arises, it is a deeply negative feeling that can cite significant health consequences. For example, our research has shown that long-term loneliness can be associated with an increased number of chronic illnesses. And this can lead to a vicious circle because chronic illnesses can make it difficult to take part in social activities, especially in old age. Another vicious circle may arise from the experience of loneliness itself. Chronic experiences of loneliness, like experiencing loneliness over a long term of time, can alter the perception of the social world negatively and can lead the individual to withdraw from still existing social ties and activities. With regard to aging research, the model just described must in particular be able to explain one surprising fact. Objectively, social integration is likely to decrease with age. And here you can see, for example, that the risk of having a very small social network increases with advancing age. However, the development of loneliness does not follow this pattern, at least not in most Western countries. Our analysis of the German context have shown that the risk of loneliness increases by around 2% between the age of 40 and 90 years. And at age of 40, the risk of being lonely is about the same as at the age of 85. Our hypothesis regarding this puzzle was that the association between different aspects of social relationship and loneliness might actually change with age. To investigate this hypothesis, we used the German Aging Survey. And the German Aging Survey is a representative survey of adults aging from 40 to 85 years. Every 6 years in 1996, 2002, 2008, and 2014, a new representative sample was drawn. And at the same time, every participant from the sample was asked to participate again in subsequent waves in order to provide longitudinal information on development. In 2011 and 2017, 2 pure panel assessments have been conducted. To investigate We use this combined information of all survey assessment for a so-called accelerated longitudinal design. In this design, every participant provided information about a certain point of the lifespan. So for example, the dark blue participants provided information from the age of 41 to the age of 56. And putting that all together, we could use this data structure to analyze the development of loneliness, not with respect to time and study, but with respect to age. And using age as a time metric, we could ask whether or not a specific aspect of social relationship measured at the age of 41, for example, predicted loneliness 3 years later. In the second step, we tested whether or not this longitudinal association was getting weaker, or in this case, getting stronger with advancing age. Across a series of studies, we found out that having a partner was more important in middle age than it was in old age. However, the quality of social relationships, so the quality of friend ties, for example, was equally important at all ages. In contrast, high levels of social activities were more strongly associated with a reduced risk of loneliness in older adults than in middle-aged adults. In other words, social activities were specifically useful for avoiding loneliness in late adulthood. One conclusion we drew from our research is age is not only associated with changes in social relationships, for example, because networks are shrinking. With advancing age, social standards probably also change. Our research showed that the wish of having a partner may decrease actually in intensity with age, and being single is likely more positively evaluated at older ages. In addition, some resources may also change for the better with age. The skills needed to shape one's own relationships may actually grow. An indication for this in our research was that we found that older adults had more positive and less negative relationships in their social networks than middle-aged adults. In our opinion, these differential developments mean that different approaches to intervention are needed at different life stages. In middle adulthood, loneliness may be more likely to be triggered by poor quality relationships, and therefore an increase in social skills can be helpful. In old age, it is more often caused by an involuntary decrease in social interactions, and therefore in late adulthood, interventions that create opportunities to socialize with other people may be successful. In a future project, we want to further pursue this idea that different contextual conditions lead to different causes for the emergence of loneliness. The COESI project is about investigating the consequences of the corona pandemic on the development of social integration in middle and late adulthood. We have submitted an application to a call for proposals by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and the call was on the societal consequences of the corona pandemic, research for integration, participation, and renewal. And currently, the outlook for getting funders is probably very high. As a starting point for the COESI project was this finding. Using a short-term survey, we found in 2020 that the corona pandemic was associated with a large increase in the number of lonely people in Germany in the second half of life. In the COESI project, we will follow up on this finding. Our assumption is rather simple, and we propose that adults who were able to change social activities or their social standards could cope with the circumstances of the pandemic. In the COESI project, we want to conduct panel analysis using the DEAS data over 5 measurement points that cover different phases of the pandemic. 4 of these phases have already been carried out or are in planning. And with the projects fund, we want to conduct another wave in winter 23-24. The basic idea of the study is that people differ in terms of their development before, during, and after the pandemic. And as I showed, many people have experienced loneliness with the start of the pandemic due to the contact restriction. For some, this condition will have persisted during the course of the pandemic and might only improve as the pandemic subsides. Other people will have adapted to the pandemic and may use new ways to maintain their social relationships, such as using new methods of communication or engaging in new social activities. Maybe these new forms of social engagement can even make them feel more socially integrated at the end of the pandemic, in contrast to their level of integration before the pandemic. Concluding, I would like to point out that I hope that I could show that the impact of certain risk factors for the development of loneliness may change systematically across the lifespan, and that means that we need different interventions at different parts of the lifespan. With our analysis focusing on shorter timescale, we hope to demonstrate that these changes in association may also occur in the short term if there is a massive change in contextual conditions, such as the corona pandemic. Thank you for listening.